Hello, my name is Steve D'Agostino, and I want to welcome you to today's training. We are going to be installing an OpenShift cluster on Nutanix using the assisted installer between the two by using the Red Hat Hybrid Cloud Console. So the first thing that we're going to want is to make sure that we have our login for Red Hat and also for our Nutanix Prism Central. Okay, so the first thing that we'll want to do is we'll want to come over here into our Hybrid Cloud Console and click on Create Cluster. Once we're in here, we're going to want to go to Data Center because that is where our assisted installer is. We'll click on our Create Cluster. Let's give our cluster a name. I want to call this OCP AI Nutanix cluster. How's that? Your base domain should be given to you. Now I'm working personally within a lab and demo environment. The reason that I tell you that is because as we go further into the training, there may be some slight differences in what you see on my screen and what you would see in real life. But again, it's just because I'm in a development environment or in a demo environment that has a slightly different look to it. But your base domain is going to be wherever your cluster is actually going to be hosted. Okay, your Nutanix cluster is going to be hosted. We'll click on Next. Don't worry about the operators. We'll just click Next there. All right, this is the important part here in terms of connecting your Red Hat account basically to Nutanix. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to click Add Hosts. Okay, and once we have that screen up, we're going to do two things. We want we're going to create an ISO, Discovery ISO, and we're going to want it to be a full image file. You're going to want to drop your public SSH key in here so that if at any point you need to be able to log in and manipulate your cluster and SSH into it from a terminal, this will be used to do that. All right, so we create our Discovery ISO. All right, and the first thing that we have to do is we have to create that image. So we're going to go to our Prism console. And we're going to click on Images here. We're going to add an image from the URL. Okay, and that's what we just copied. Let's call this, we'll call it Discovery ISO, and it is an ISO. We're just going to place it directly on the cluster. Well, it might take just a moment for that to generate. So let's give that just a second here. And it looks like it's not quite here yet. In the meantime, let's go on ahead and start working on creating our virtual machines. So we're going to need 6 of these. We're going to need 3 for a control plane, and then we're going to need 3 worker nodes. So let's start off first with the control plane nodes. All right, and I've done this before, so we're going to use OCP AI Nutanix control plane node, at least in this demo. We need 3 of these machines minimum, so we'll go with that. The control plane nodes are going to need 4 cores minimum with 16 gigabits minimum memory for each core. Okay. All right, now when we attach our disk, it's going to come from CD-ROM because this is where we're going to use the ISO to create our node. And look at that. There's the Discovery ISO. It just takes a minute for it to populate. All right, our bus type is IDE. We're going to save that. And then we need to add actual storage. Okay, so everything is already set up as it is. We need to give it a minimum of, let's give it 120. A minimum of 100 gigabits. We'll give it 120 just to be on the safe side. This is going to be a SCSI bus type here. This is where our image is actually going to be stored and booted and all that great stuff. All right, we need to attach our node to a subnet. There's really only one available at the moment. So there are two ways that we can do the boot configuration. You can use this legacy BIOS mode if you want. We prefer to use the UEFI BIOS mode so that we don't have to go back in and change the order of boot operations, which is another step, and that's a very rare and fail-only step that you don't really need to worry about today. So we'll just click next. Next here. All right, well, look at this OCP AI Nutanix control plane node 1 through 3, right? 3 VMs, 4 cores, 16. We've got what we need here. Yep. So we are going to create that virtual machine. All right, now that we've done that, we need to create our 3 worker nodes. So we're gonna call this OCP AI Nutanix worker node. We need 3 of those. Now for these, we need 2 cores and 8 gigabits of memory. We're going to do the same thing with the attaching of the disks. We're going to go CD-ROM, clone from image, discovery ISO, IDE, and then we need to attach our SCSI disk attached to our subnet, switch to UEFI BIOS mode, and create that VM as well. Okay, so let's filter to just our OCP. All right. Now you can see all 4 of those nodes, or all 6 of those nodes have been created. So now we are going to power them all on. All right, and because this takes a few minutes, I'm going to pause here and come back. All right, now we have come back, and as you can see, all of our hosts have been discovered and are ready. Now, we can integrate with the virtualization platform. Since they are all coming from Nutanix, we want to make sure that we are actually integrating with Nutanix. Okay, so we're going to turn that on. And we're going to click next. All right, and this shows that this, what the storage is for everything, and everything's correct. All right, now what we do here is we have to decide what IP addresses we're going to use to both be able to manipulate our cluster or our environment, as well as the IP address that's going to take traffic from the outside. It has to be within this machine network range of IPs. So it has to go from 192 to, well, as you can see, to 255, and it has to be a free IP address that we can assign to these purposes. So whatever they are, as long as they're within that range. As you can see in a previous demo, I've already done this, and I've deleted them, so they're free now as well. So we'll use the 221 and the 222 within this range here. Okay. All right, look at this. We can't do that because I did not delete these clusters previously. So what if we did 3 and 4? Looks like that's already being used as well. So what if we do 231? So you may run into this situation, particularly if you're working with a team of people who has been using these, right? So how about 11? and 12. Yep, looks like I can use 11 and 12. So we're going to use 11 and 12 because those are free. So we click next. All right, as you can see, every little pre-flight check that they have here has passed. So we're going to install the cluster. All right, you can get the screen here. This can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to complete. So we'll pause here and come back in just a little bit once things have completed. We're a few minutes in, and as you can see, if you go to that same screen and click on your host inventory down here, you can see the status, and we're about halfway through or so. So we'll continue waiting, and we'll be back in just a little bit. All right, and we are back. So as you can see, we have installed our OpenShift image on all of our different nodes. We have our web console URL. We're given our username of kubeadmin and whatever your password is here that you'll just copy. Now, as I have mentioned before, I'm doing this in a lab environment. So if I click this link, then I'm not going to get anything because I'm not accessible by the internet, or at the very least, I'm in a local environment that you would not be able to access because of the way that I'm doing things here. So that's one difference that you may see between what I'm doing and what you're doing. But once we now you should be able to access that console by clicking that link, and this is what it'll look like here. We have our kubeadmin here. We're gonna paste in our password here. All right, and so now you can see that the cluster has indeed been installed. And if we scroll down, this is another difference between what you might see on your screen and what I have here, because I'm on a very small screen that I can't make any bigger. But as you can see right here, infrastructure provider is Nutanix. So here we have successfully installed an OpenShift cluster on the Nutanix platform. So with that success, we'll go on ahead and close out for now, and we'll get into installing the container storage operator in the next session. Until then, thanks for watching.